All right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Facility and Safety Committee meeting to order. This meeting was posted as required by the Texas statutes and the Open Meetings Act. And we're going to start out with the first item is the update of the funded projects by Oscar Tapia.
Thank you, Mr. Powers, Facilities Chair, Dr. Noyola, and colleagues. The first item I'll talk about is a local funded project. It's a tiny homes project we're doing at Harlingen High School and South under Mr. Hector Tijerina is running that program with the students where they're building a home on a trailer. I presented this last month, and we wanted to have another update what they're doing right now. The students have completed the wall sections, and they're working on the floor right now. They're being assisted by Mr. Eddie Rodriguez from D. Wilson Construction and two other gentlemen, Renee and Brandon, that are helping them with a template on how to lay out the floor joists on the trailer so then they can nail down or screw down the wood floor on top of that. So that's currently what they're working on now. Before they didn't have the wood materials, so they hadn't started that, but the materials came in and they're already starting to do that work. Just to show you, that's the layout, but there's the contractor showing them how to lay out. They created a template for them to put them on probably either 16 or 24 inches on center. They'll do the floor joist on the trailer, and then you can see the students working on some of the wood there that they're going to be measuring and cutting. You have the team there of the students with the safety vests, and that was them putting the headers on the window and the door openings on the walls. So once the wood floor is on, they'll put the walls on top of that. Okay. And so that's what they're working on now. They're hoping to finish that by the end of the year. 3 weeks left.
You said the gentleman helping them is named Brandon?
There's
Eddie.
And then he's got two other helpers.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, super. Wow.
It was Renee and Brandon and Eddie Rodriguez from D. Wilson. That's the company that built our UTRGV project, Harlingen Collegian High. So they're very experienced contractors, so they're getting some good exposure with the kids. Move on to the ESSER-funded projects. The units we're doing for under the buy board that we bought directly with buy board vendors, Dakin, Train, and Carrier manufacturers and installers. Just to give you an update on I did a little spreadsheet there. The ones that are completed are Lee Means, Zavala, and Jefferson. And the other ones, we have some dates of when they're coming in. A lot of these dates have been moved back a few months, and Rodriguez and Stewart Place, Croc and Houston, those units will be in July, even some units at South. So as soon as they're in, they'll be installed. The other project we're doing, and it was a separate purchase order for some other units for Stewart Place, for chiller, Bonham, some fresher units, Zavala and Annex, some rooftops. We know one's coming in July. One of them's been pushed back to September for the Annex building. And Bonham and Zavala, we still don't have shipping dates yet. But these POs were cut back in, I think, November.
It's been a while.
Lee Means we did over the spring break, and Zavala we did last weekend. The roof projects, we have two packages, one under Megamorphosis for re-roofing projects and some door and windows at the two high schools, Vela and Long. And so the architect's doing a lot of field work, measuring the roofs. They're doing core samples of the thickness of the cross-section of the roof, how much moisture, the condition of it, so that they can spec the appropriate materials. So they're, I would say, about 25% done during the design phase right now after they've done all their field work. Janak Architects, similarly, they got roof work at several elementary schools, Coakley and Vernon, and the Annex building, and doors and windows at South, Coakley, Bonham, and several other little elementaries. A lot of windows that have, they leak, they're not insulated windows, the caulking or strip, film strip is deteriorated. So they get a lot of moisture and dust and all kinds of stuff coming in. So we'll replace them with brand new windows.
Oscar, will Joel or somebody be rating these on energy efficiency later on? Or?
Yes, during the design phase, we're doing energy efficiency. At South, for example, all the entry doors, they're not energy efficient rated doors. So we'll be replacing the entrances and the front and the back and the side where we have all the card swipes. But that school, there's some of those doors we can't do the card swipe systems because the door frames are too thin and there's not a raceway in between to run it. So the new doors will allow for us to add the card swipe systems in them. So it's kind of a dual, two birds in one stone kind of approach. So they're also doing a lot of field work on collecting data so they can put the plans and specs together. TRE projects, the Early Childhood Academy, Holchemon Construction got the award, and they got their building permit Friday, so you'll start seeing them mobilize later this week and start doing some demo work inside and digging out the foundations for the addition. So it's a go now. We got everything in line, and so it's just a matter of then starting work. And that's a definition of the scope of work, what we're doing there, and the layout. The Hcisd Academy lettering, Dr. Noyola, they were already taken down that same day
Great.
that I sent maintenance, so those letters are not there anymore, so people don't confuse that as keys.
Perfect.
So this is the school exterior elevations. Internal courtyard, we're going to be demolishing that brick paver. It's the trees that used to be there, just the roots uplifted all the pavers. It's very uneven and just a safety hazard. So we're going to take all that out and redo that courtyard, and we'll be knocking down with the outer phase that we do with the outdoor playground equipment that we do out there. We'll be knocking down the old basketball courts.
Do you have any designs of what it's, futuristic designs of what it's going to look like, or?
The outdoor?
Yeah, like the pathway you're going to take out, will it be just a regular, will you redo it as another pathway, or will it be something that'll be used for?
This one in the courtyard will be very similar, and we'll do some landscaping, but the area outside by where the basketball courts are,
Right.
we're working with that company Echo to do some exterior work. So we have a conceptual layout, and so we've brought in a local landscape architect that will work with those drawings now and start projecting some numbers of more detailed information. So I can present that at the next meeting once we narrow that down a little bit more.
Can you also get a rendering?
Yeah.
That's what you're asking?
Yeah,
Yeah, they have, it's like a colored site plan.
Yeah.
Actually presented that at the last meeting, and I can bring that back, but that's, the whole thing there, I think it's like $1.5 million worth of work. We only have 300,000, so we're gonna probably break it up in 2 or 3 phases, and that's the next step we'll work on, and we'll bring that forward at the next meeting.
that'd be great.
The marquees also awarded to Golden Rule Signs. They also got all the building permits. Took them a while. It was 13 school sites, and each single site needed site plans and drawings and permits. So they've secured all that. So they're already under production, and the first batch is completed around June 15th, and then it'll be shipped. So around late June, early July, we should be seeing all the signs go up. And these are the school locations that we have there on the slide 23. Lists all the schools are doing. Any questions on those marquees? They will look, that's a rendering of the Coakley sign. It'll be very similar to what we did at Gutierrez. Same size. The elementaries will have the school name, the logo on the left, and the digital board in the middle. In the bottom part, we are going to put the district logo.
Jose Luis?
Yeah. And then some of the schools have ground signs, like at Sam Houston. This will go inserted into the ground sign that's there now. The 2 schools, IB schools, Sam Houston and Austin, will have the same similar design. STEM Academy will get a new sign, and that's what that one will look like.
There's Shane.
That's Shane, yeah.
That's 6 feet tall.
The First Responders Academy is the firefighters and paramedic program that's going to be behind the Secondary Alternative Center on the Hawkins building that we bought. We ranked, those bids came in and we ranked them. And G&G Construction, you can see there from the scores, came out 121 points. So this one's on the agenda for award.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, it'll be on the agenda for award, so we can start that project.
That was close.
Yeah, well, the bids were 381,000, 427, and 522,000. So pretty good bids, actually.
Was the 1 point difference based on the price?
No, if you can see the price there, G&G got 50 points as the best price, Holterman got 44, so that's a 6-point spread, and then Coric got 35 points. So it's just all the other little categories on references and past performance with us and history and things like that.
It's how they submit their entire packet
Package.
together, along with past history with us.
And that's the building that we're talking about. There's the floor plan of the 2 big classrooms. They have a storage room. They have the big open area for the firefighters' equipment will be laid out on racks in the open area. And offices and storage areas in the building. The outside is a big open metal building with garage door openings so that the ambulance can fit in there. And the outside, there's going to be some painting and some logos and things like that. So as soon as the board awards it, we'll start working on the contracts. The fire alarm and intercom, we're targeting Milan to have a new intercom and Austin Lamar Sac for new fire alarms. We're projecting around $325,000, but we got bids in, 2 bids. Superior Alarm came in at $1.1 million. And Telepro came in at $605,000, but Telepro didn't acknowledge 2 addendums and they didn't submit a bid package, so their bid is not valid. They didn't do a bid bond that's required. So we really only have 1 valid bid of Superior Alarms for $1.1 million. It's way over budget, so we're going to be submitting an agenda item to reject the bids due to lack of vendor participation and very high bids. So I don't know if you want to add, that'll be on the agenda.
Next week as well, just to reject all bids, and we'll relook at the specs and rebid it out as well.
Are there many other companies, is this something that mainly just valley-wide companies bid on, or do people out of the valley, is this big enough job for somebody in Corpus or San Antonio to look
Maybe
at?
Corpus, San Antonio, we're looking at about $300,000-$400,000, but the
Yeah.
bid came in at $1.1 million. So we need to relook at the specifications and see what we can cut off, or is it the price is actually increasing that much? So Oscar and I
Yeah.
are gonna look at that.
I had a meeting this afternoon with DBR Engineering on some of the AC projects, and he's very concerned with the scope we gave him with the budgets, because when we developed these budgets back in the fall, he said the prices have gone up 30 to 40%, and they're bidding out projects, and we're seeing very high bids because of course, the availability of the equipment because so many districts are out trying to buy it. It's a nationwide thing, so all the manufacturers are overbooked. They're still having trouble getting that chip. A lot of the big air conditioning contractors here in the valley, they've gotten so many bids already that they've bonded out. They're at bonding capacity. They can't bid anymore. So they're trying to some of them are trying to increase their bonding capacity to allow them to get more work. So one of the alternatives is they're going to general contractors who have bigger bonding capacity. Hey, I want to bid this, I can't bond it, but you have a $25, $30 million bonding capacity. Let me be your sub, and you bid it as a general contractor.
Yeah.
But the general contractor is going to add 10, 15% just to manage the project. So you're seeing increases there as well. So everybody's flooding the market. It's just supply and demand. So prices are going up, labor's going up.
Yeah. So this is a TRE budget type item. Fire alarms are very important, that we really need to look at that. If we need to increase the budget because of the prices, then we're gonna have to look at that, and maybe something else will come off of the TRE for later years. So this is a priority that we probably need to be looking at, and so like I said, Oscar's gonna be looking at what we can do to remodify the specifications, but there is a lot of price increase in the
It looks like we're looking at a lot more than 325, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, so we're going to meet with the engineer. If there's anything we can do with the specs to see if we can reduce the price. Maybe some things we can do in-house. We're not sure, but we'll relook at it. But I think the problem is Superior knew there was very limited bids, and they just threw a high number. Telepro would have been a better bid, but they just forgot to submit their bid bond and didn't acknowledge some paperwork. So we're hoping this time around we can get 2-3 valid bids and see what it is. If we need to drop one of the schools, we can drop one of the schools and just put them on the list for next year. So
Okay.
we'll see what the rebid does.
So I'm just curious, do we have somebody that can go out and price these things individually, like backwards to see how valid these prices are?
Yeah, well, we've bought equipment on our own
Right.
using the buy board, so we have that history.
But current, do we have current access to that information?
Yes, the projects that I showed you earlier, which were the air conditioning,
Like, I'm specifically talking like the alarms.
yeah, and the engineers are bidding those district-wide, so they have that data. But like, for example, these prices here, those are prices that we cut a PO. Those are fixed prices for those equipment. Those same ones today are going up 30–40%, because we're seeing the prices and we're comparing it back to
Got it.
when we did these POs back in October, November. Hey, the prices were this, why are they going up so much? Well, that's what the market's doing. So we have fixed prices on what they used to cost.
Got it.
Similarly with fire alarms and
Got it.
other things. So that's how we were able to tell how far the prices are going up. So the last item is just a final payment on the security vestibules we did for Dishman, Rodriguez, and Wilson. We just had problems getting the final paperwork, and they had a lot of turnover, and we finally talked to the president of the company to help us close this out with our architect, David Monreal. And so the final pay-up was finally adjusted to credit us $3,940 that was not used. We'll adjust the amount owed to them, so their final payment will be in $11,412.85, and that'll be on the agenda next Tuesday. We'll finally close this project out, close the PO. That's it. That's all I have for you today.
All right. Okay.
Then we have the financial report from Mr. Julio Cavazos.
Thanks, Oscar, Mr. Powers, Dr. Noel, committee members. Agenda item number 5 is the construction funds report as of April 30th, 2022. In column 1, you have year 1 through 6 of the budget, $83 million. Column 2, year 7 of the budget, another $10 million. So in total for 7 years, $93 million. Column 3, you have what we spent year 1 through 6, $75.5 million. In column number 4, what we spent and committed this year so far, another $14.4 million. What we spent and committed so far, $88.7 million. We have about $4.2 million left in this year's, year 7 of the TRE budget. We do expect to earmark those funds here within the next couple of months. Be glad to answer any questions that committee members might have.
Hello? Any questions, anyone? All right, if there are no questions, I want everybody to notice it is 4:21.
Same.
So it's a good experience here. We are adjourned.
We're on a roll. All right, I'd like to bring this meeting to order. It's 4:30 PM, and this is the agenda, the Teaching and Learning Committee meeting, and this has been posted. And I'd like to first start off by bringing up Dr. Joseph Villarreal and Sylvia Gamboa. They'll be talking about the HCISD College and Career Readiness Guides.
Well, good evening, Dr. Moniz, committee members. So normally when you have a committee meeting like this, someone comes to the podium, presents on a topic, explains, you look at a PowerPoint. Well, that's going to occur tonight, and it's going to be Ms. Gamboa and I, but something a little bit different is that you're going to have a tangible item that you can refer to during the presentation. So at this time, Mr. Stroobhart and Ms. Gamboa will be passing out what we'll be looking at this evening, and these are our College and Career Readiness Guides. We have an Educator edition and a Student and Parent edition. And so I'll wait for them to hand these out, and then we will begin our presentation.
Very nice.
So what you have in front of me are two College and Career Readiness Guides. Like I said, an Educator edition and a Student and Parent edition. We'll explain what that is in a little bit. I do want to start by saying this has been a labor of love. It started at the beginning of the school year, and we were challenged with basically documenting, organizing everything that we offer in HCISD when it comes to college, career, and military readiness. We knew that we offered a lot here in HCISD, but once you document it, once you put it down, once you organize it, it's really overwhelming the amount of activities that we offer here in HCISD, both for our faculty members, but also most importantly for our students and our families. And when you go back to our strategic plan that we always refer to, you look at that third bullet there, and it's really increasing the efficiency of communication between teachers, parents, and students about all of the great things that we offer here at HCISD when it comes to college and career readiness. And so we're very, very proud of the document that you have in front of you. But first, why? Why did we want to create these college and career readiness guides? Well, first of all, like I kind of mentioned at the beginning, we wanted to communicate exactly what we offer. When it comes to college and career, it can be an overwhelming process for our families, especially if you have a student that's going to college for the first time, and that's a first-generation college student. It is an overwhelming process. And I believe that we do a great job here in HCISD in trying to make that process easier for our families. Secondly, we wanted to display an organized plan. We just don't decide to offer application drives on a given year. We just don't decide to offer FAFSA drives on a given year or to set up meetings with our college and career advisors. There's a plan that sits behind all this. And so we wanted to make sure that we organize this plan, and that plan is there in that guide that you see in front of you. And then thirdly, we wanted to express the importance of college, career, and military readiness. Not only do we want our students to graduate with a diploma, but we want them to graduate with a plan, whether that's to enter the workforce with a certification that we offer here at HCISD, whether that's going into college, or whether that's going into military. And so again, having that in front of you, having that documented, having that organized, it really expresses the importance of what it means here in HCISD to be college, career, and military ready. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Gamboa, our Director of Guidance and Counseling. She was instrumental in a lot of this work. We had the departments of Guidance and Counseling, the departments of Advanced Academics, our Athletics Department, our Fine Arts Department, our College and Career Advisors, our head counselors. We all came together to organize this project. And so that's why it's been a year-long process. And so I'm very proud of the work that she's done in organizing this. So once I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's going to go through those guides and explain what you have in front of you. And then at the end, we'll open it up to you all to see if you have any suggestions. What you have in front of you is kind of a draft. We're open to any edits that need to be made or any suggestions that you may have based on what you hear this evening. So Ms. Gamboa, come on over.
Thank you, Dr. Villarreal. Yes, as was mentioned, as a district, we do offer so many opportunities, resources to our students in regard to college and career readiness. So we did want to put that all together to make it something for the students, the parents, but also for the educators. And so that way we can all work collectively as a team to ensure that our students are taking advantage of all of these resources. And so as you can see through the guide, it is organized by grade level. So we were really excited to start at the 5th grade. So that's something we really want to reiterate to our students, that as early as possible to start really thinking about what's coming ahead and what are the opportunities that they're going to have as they start to do these career explorations, right? And so we did combine, it is a multidisciplinary effect. We combined the academics, athletics, fine arts, the military, the career and technology education as well. So all of those components are included in all of these, in the guides and the resources. We also understood that it can be overwhelming when we start talking about all the acronyms and the abbreviations. So we start talking about TSI, SAT, ACT, TASFA, FAFSA. It starts to get really overwhelming. Even as a parent who has 17 years of counseling experience, it can be overwhelming. And so whether you're a first-generation student or you're a student of parents who do have an education, things change every year. And so in visiting with parents, a lot of times even parents who did have an education, they also felt overwhelmed because of the changes. And they would say things like, well, when I did my college application, it was on paper. I stood in line to do the FAFSA. And so things are so different. So we want to provide that support to all of our students, from the first generation students to students who maybe do have family that have already attended university. So we did include a glossary of terms at the end, which works really well with the guide, but also in and of itself, it's really a good tool and a resource for parents to really look up all of those acronyms and those abbreviations as well, to get a better understanding of what all of that means. We want to make sure that this involves communication and the collaboration between the schools and the family. So that's really important to us, because as a district, we know we're doing all these amazing things for our students, but we want the parents to be aware of that so that they can actually collaborate with us in helping to ensure that the students are utilizing those resources. So we want to look at, for example, there's looking at the 10th grade. And again, this is just an example, and you will see that as we progress through the grade levels, of course, when you get to the senior year, it's more than one page. And, that's just the way it is as the students are going through the grade levels. So if you look at page 12 and 13, we can look at the 10th grade as an example, and you can see how it's divided by the 2 semesters. So once we got to the high school, we looked at how much we were doing for our students and realized, we really need to break this down by semester, because there are some things that are happening throughout the year, but there are other things that are happening specifically either in the fall or the spring. So we really wanted to highlight that for our families and our students. And so, for example, we're looking at the Hcisd College Night. So you may recall that's the TACRO College Night event that we have in the fall, typically at Casa de Amistad. So really excited about that opportunity. And one of the reasons we wanted to make sure we include this even in the 9th grade is because I would hear some students saying, oh, I thought that was just for seniors, or is that just for juniors? No, we encourage the students to come as early as possible so they can start having that very effective and meaningful communication with the university representatives. We also start, if you look at the testing, that's when it's starting, right? So we have the test prep opportunities. What is the TSI? When do they start taking the PSAT? So those are different components that you can see, again, broken down by the semesters as well as the grade levels to help our students. Another one that we really like is the student athlete NCAA registration. That's a very specific point in time when they have to go ahead and complete that registration. So we wanted to make sure we included that in the sophomore year in the spring. And then moving forward, you'll notice that that continues as well as they start to continue to have those conversations with their counselors, right? Making sure that the courses are appropriate. So for the educator guide, you will notice that it does align to the student guide. And on a side note, the size was purposeful as well. We wanted the student guide to be something they could easily carry, put in their backpack. This is the parent guide as well, so that's why it's smaller. It's just a little easier for them to carry around. For the educator guide, that is the larger one, right here. So you can see that it's the same information, but for the educator guide, we do break it down in regards to adding notes, as well as who are the people responsible for this. So this was really neat and highlighting who's doing what. So if I'm a teacher and I'm curious about who to contact because one of my students has a question about Mentor Connect, or they have a question about the PSAT, I know exactly who I can ask those questions to, and I also know who the student, to give the student that guide. Go talk to your counselor, it's right here. So that's a big piece of the educator guide, and having us all working together, because you never know who the student is going to ask that question. And the more of us who are aware of what the district is providing as far as activities and resources, the better it is to make sure that our students and our parents get that information. And so how do we want to use the guide? So again, we want our students and parents to utilize the guide so that they can identify those resources, so they can assist in the planning and tracking of their students or their child's academic, college, and career pathways. The educators will be able to utilize that so they can be knowledgeable, again, in speaking to the parents and students who maybe come forward, but also to be able to really encourage them to collaborate with each other, to collaborate with the counselors if they see something, hey, this is really neat, I'd like to get involved with this. And so I think the more people who are aware of what the district is offering, the better it is, and the more apt that our students and families will be able to really utilize all of those resources to their advantage.
So at this time, I want to open it up to any discussions, questions, or suggestions that you have. Again, this is a draft. It's a first look draft. You all were the first ones. And so we are open to anything that you have to offer or suggest.
Well, I'll kick it off if that's okay. Thank you very much. First of all, I have got to say, if this is a draft, I don't know what an exceptional piece looks like. These are just extraordinary. And I see them as foundational because it's really moving us up from where we've been. And I think that they're going to be extremely useful, and want to commend all of you for doing this. This is really neat. I mean, this shows the professional level of the thinking and, the strategizing that our district does. So for the audience, if anyone's watching, these are just really exceptional, and I thank you for doing that. This is really near and dear to my heart. In 1985, we started the first college and career resource room. It was the dream of Ann McBain, a counselor at the time, because she saw, and I think this would be true and relevant today, the counselor's office was so busy they could not possibly adequately address the college counseling aspect, and that we needed to put it in a separate room. At the time, we had parent volunteers. There were no professionals involved. So, and now we have professionals involved in this. This is just really a next step, Doctor Noyola. I commend you all for doing this. This is extraordinary. Number one. Number two, I love how specific it is, because I think that's going to really help. I have it changes right over time, and Ms. Campbell, you've seen this over the years. I do have a thought about college and career counseling, mainly college counseling, and that is that we've come so far. This just takes us to the next step. We've gone from nothing to volunteer college and career resource rooms, to professional college and career resource rooms, to really documenting everything. It's just step by step by step. One of the things that I would like to be sure that we address is what's actually going on in the college and career resource rooms, because I realize that we all realize that it's only really as effective as a student allows it to be, right? We can have the greatest counselors in the world, but if for some reason there's not a way to relate to the students, or the students are not relating to us, then it's not possible to do. But one of my thoughts is that I hope that we're working on, and I was actually going to come speak to Ms. Gamboa about this. This is perfect timing. Is what kind of I think it's very important that we are very specific. I love that you have noted in here, among all the different groups, the student athletes. But when I look at that, I'm thinking that's extra special right that we're doing this. I'm also thinking, though, I think we need to be looking with specificity to our strong students, strong academic students, to the level that the college and career counselors know all the honors programs. Once they find out that Bobby's child is going to go to A&M and Bobby's child is a student who excels academically, then what does A&M offer, or UT, or UTSA, or Texas State, or Harvard? What does that specific student's college offer in his or her field that is unique for that student at that college? And I would say, and I'm saying this because our daughter works in one, so everybody knows that that's where I'm coming from. But I think it's really important for our counselors to understand, you're going to go to A&M. You are qualified for the honors program. Let's be sure you know about the honors program, because what I'm finding is students don't. They don't. And that's perhaps their fault, but they don't. And so I think we need to So I'm thinking in terms, it prompted me when I saw how well we're working now with the student athletes. I would say the honor students, I would say the athletes, I would say the fine arts program kind of does it within itself, but I think we ought to be sure that our counselors are well informed. Our special needs students, and I think that's just the next step. It seems to me like now that we've got all the resources, the room, the people, then so we find out where the students are going, and then the counselors inform themselves about what kind of student this is and what's offered at that school. I realize that's a big ask. That's a really big foundational step. But I just wanted you to know that in my mind, that's where I see the next big step. This is the huge big step that makes it possible for parents and students to begin to understand the wealth of information we have. Then when we get them into the college and career room, which is a big step, I realize, for lots of, what are we doing with them? Where are we taking them to show them something about the school they're choosing they may not know about? So anyway, that's my thought. And I love being able to look back and see the steps where we've come, and I love that we can look forward. And as I look forward with this kind of a tool, that to me would be one of the next steps. So anyway.
Absolutely.
Thoughts about that?
I just want to add, I think this is a great movement. I really do. As a parent my last one got out 10 years ago, and before I was even on the board, what Jerry was relating to, you don't know about these things. I've been out of school for years, and we didn't even have that back when I was in school.
No.
But, you don't know where to go, what to do, or what's available as a parent. And, this is just really an asset, and I compliment you on it. And I agree with Jerry. I think it's also to work forward into when these kids decide where they're going to go. Some of them pick a school just because of popularity or their parents went there and so forth. But they do need to, gear up and find out about where their talents are and what that school has to offer for their talents. But this is a great project you did. Thank you.
So obviously I missed like a lot. So I blew through this. First off, didn't we not have the most beautiful students? Oh my gosh. I'm just like, look at them. They're all, anyway, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. I think it's a terrific resource. I feel super fortunate because like I'm one of those parents who had some go through and got some of this, and now I got one come in who will get this. It's just great. And it's great for me to go, so, darling, where are we on this, right? So I love that. I did have a conversation, so all kudos on this. I'm super excited. I had I think a related conversation with some families recently, and it was about study preparation, which of course is part of college and career readiness, right? And, where do we really slow down, dig in, and teach students about how to study, like what that really looks like, and how to prepare for tests. And I see that, I love the TSIA and all that, that's been super helpful. But even for just like regular classes, and then there's that level, so like we get a net wide, and everybody should get that, right? I mean, if you're going into the military, you got to know how to study any place. You got to have the skills, because it's skills and then practicing those skills. You all are the experts, you know this. But in addition to that, it seems to me that there are kids who, and my kids would be these kids, who you're like, wait a minute, you may have had that class, but you kind of aren't using it yet, or maybe you need a refresher, and I want to refer you somewhere. Like, as a parent, at times you're like, I don't know what else to tell them, but you all are the ones who can tell them and really teach it right. So maybe there's a way where we have like a resource center, that's the wrong words, but a place where parents who know their kids need more, and especially because we had online learning where, guess what, whatever skills you learned, right? So how do we refine it, support them, let parents know that this is for you, refer your kids, or come learn with them, or something. Anyway, I think there's something that could be in this too, and to help them prep for the real world.
So one thing that we are looking at is for lack of a better term, a college and career portal. And what that would do is that it exposes students to colleges and universities. It assesses their learning styles. It teaches them how to study. And so this is something that we'd want to begin. And we do some of that already in our middle schools, but with the program that we're looking at, we'd be able to implement that in our middle schools, but with intentionality. And we would have a plan of action to ensure that every student is getting exposed to that. And so, for example, there's one where, to your point, UT, because I went there, or my son to go there. Well, a student can take a live tour of UT through that program, and it's really neat. And so you would just, it's like in the Google Maps where you place the person down, and it takes you on a tour of the university. And you walk through the university, and it's all in your computer. To a student being able to submit transcripts online as well. We're hoping that the days of, the past where you have to go and request your transcript to be sent to the university will be in the past, and we'd be able to do it all online. But also to your point about the study skills and how do I learn, how do I study, and a product like that would really help our students. And it also gives parents access, so parents can access that information as well. But I think it's imperative, like you said, to make that part of this document as well.
I want to add to that. I think that's so critical, because my experience was one of my kids really didn't know how to study, but one of the colleges that he looked at, that he didn't end up going to, but they had a mandatory freshman course for time management. It was a 2-hour credit, but it was time management. Every kid that went to that college had to take it, so they learned how to budget their time.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's something that in that portal you're talking about, that I thought. And the other thing is, I don't know if it's in here or not, but one of the things that helped him a lot was the counselors, how to utilize counselors at college. His first year, he went to UTSA, and he was weak in math. And we were talking, we called the lady there at the counseling department. I asked her for the names of some people who were good in, were excellent tutors in certain courses. And her response to me was, which I didn't know, she said, I can give you a list of private tutors, but she said, I have kids here. I want to meet your son. I want to interview him, and I want to pair him with somebody that has a personality like his.
Wow,
That will help him. He made 2 A's.
that's big.
Blew me away. But I mean, but they need to learn how to use that, because when they go to college, sometimes they're lost, sometimes they're not. But
To
that
be
counseling
resourceful.
is learning how to use the counselors and things like that. I think is
Absolutely.
really important.
And actually, our advisors are going to have a G2C, which is college, graduate to college.
Campbell, if
sorry.
you can talk into the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's people on.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yes, our advisors are going to they're hosting a G2C, which is graduation to college for students that right after they graduate on May 31st, we're hoping to get some students to come in, and they're actually going to be talking about how to access those resources at the university level, because that was some of the feedback received from our recent graduates, was that once they get to the university, how do they access, do they know there's tutoring available? Do you know there's mental health counselors available, that there's academic counselors available? So that is something that we're starting as well, and hoping to make that an ongoing throughout the year next year for our students to be able to come in, so that we can give them that additional guidance as well,
And
because,
most universities provide free tutoring with
Yes.
graduate students that receive a stipend for doing that. I mean, it's it's available.
May I just, on that particular topic, thank you, Greg, for reminding me. And that was an extraordinary opportunity. We would hope that all schools would offer that, but that's really spectacular what you said, and I appreciate that. What our daughter, the professor, says is that in addition to what Greg just said about underutilizing the counseling resources, the other number one thing that she sees underutilized is access to the professors. And she said if, and then I later heard another superintendent actually say that he felt the same way. Most of the professors, if they're halfway good, keep their doors open and wait for the students to come in, and they do not come. And they are really missing a tremendous resource. And then when they begin to come, it's just like the light dawned, and that really does need to be emphasized to the students too, I think.
So I just wanted a couple comments also. Beautiful layout. I've got 6 things written down real quick. I love the title, College and Career Readiness. We could add all kinds of stuff, but then we start getting away from this. I like that this is really focused. One of the things that we may want to consider adding, or you may want to consider adding on the 6th grade option, is putting the academies, just because they know, hey, where can we go? Those are options, right? Because that is college and career ready eventually. I don't know, and that's a big thing that we can really capitalize on, because we're losing 6th graders, right, to other schools, right? That would be a really great option. Why can't we put our notes that we have in our counselors into here?
Explain that. What?
You have notes in here for a counselor? Why can't they be in there for the parents?
We do, if you look at the page 3 right here, we do explain to them where they, if they have any questions, where they would go. But we could, we could.
Is there any reason?
Right.
Just put it there so we can see it quick and it's.
Right, and we also, what's important to us as well is that our educators, whether it be teachers, paraprofessionals, principals, really are able to have conversations with students about it, and so that's why we decided to put that information here. But that is something that we could definitely consider. Yeah.
Is used. As a parent, I could use this information also. It's not just strictly for counselors.
Correct. Yeah, because it's it's information available to everybody.
The other thing, third thing is, and you mentioned a portal, but could we create a website with all this information on there?
We are, yes. This will be on our website as well.
Perfect, beautiful
In
layout.
Spanish as well.
Perfect, and then that way they can have PDFs they can download and print, and that way they can have it also, not just this, because
Correct.
people don't carry these around anymore, right?
Right.
And then finally, 2 things. Front, just a thought, table of contents, just a thought, hey, so I can find it quick, at a glance. And maybe start off with our mission statement.
Absolutely.
Just thoughts.
Sure.
You don't have to do that. I just think that's, we always start our presentations with that, just.
Are y'all doing this in-house, printing these?
No, for the draft, yes.
Yeah.
But the final product, no, it'll be
You'll
outsourced.
have to, okay, because but we made this in-house?
We did.
I mean, that's.
Design is in-house. Roland Ansalua,
Yeah, but the printing and everything too?
we did.
Wow.
I think this is plenty great.
It's awesome.
I'm not surprised because I've been through that department. I've seen what they've done. And that's what made me ask, because this is a great product. I guess if you want to outsource it, it may be more feasible, but boy, they do a good job, so.
This is awesome. Right.
They're
How
truly
many copies are you
professional.
gonna have to make?
What's that?
How many copies, do you know how many you're gonna make?
Thousands.
Thousands.
Thousands, because our goal is for it to get into the hands of every secondary student and family in the school district, as well as teachers, all teachers. in the
Julio
district.
gave you an open checkbook.
He did?
This really makes us proud. This sort of
it's
thing
really-
really makes us
beautiful.
proud.
Good.
Yeah.
And
It's
so-
lovely.
And so with that, thank you very much. So with that, we'll go to future topics for discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Muniz. So as we look to the month of June, specifically, a couple of items are an item that we're bringing forward, but really two that we're looking at. One is our MAP growth data. And so here we are coming at the end of the year, and so our students are starting to go through that testing process. And so we're going to look to bring that data forward so that we can share what that progress and growth has looked like. But the second item, so certainly this year has been all about how we are closing gaps, and people have been working really hard this year to do that for our students. But over the last number of months, we have put together, in essence, a strategic plan around how we're not only going to close the achievement gaps that have come across us as a result of the pandemic, but really how we are going to transform teaching and learning across our district, and what every classroom will look like. And share with you what some of those cornerstones to how we will transform teaching in our classrooms will look like. Super excited at that work. Have had a lot of people come together to really narrow down what are those most important pieces of how we will change learning in our district. And I really think that if this is something that we can accomplish, we will absolutely reach some of these high hopes and dreams that we've had as a district for what we want our students to be receiving through our Hcisd schools. So super excited to share that with you all next month.
And with that, the time is 5 o'clock. The meeting is adjourned.
Lights on. I call to order this meeting, please. This is the budget workshop that we're having tonight in this lovely room for the Board of Trustees, Harlingen Consolidated Independent School District, on this date of May the 3rd, 2022, beginning promptly at 5 p.m., 5:01 perhaps, in the Harlingen admin building. Okay, the first item that we're going to have is that we establish a quorum, and thank you very much. We do indeed have a quorum. Number 2 are the public comments for agenda topics. Ms. Leffner.
Madam President, there are no requests for public comments for agenda topics.
Thank you, ma'am. Agenda item number 3, public audience for non-agenda topics. Ms. Leffner.
Madam President, there are no requests for a public audience for non-agenda topics.
Thank you very much. And so now we move to the meat of our meeting itself, the budget workshop presented by Julio Cavazos, please.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Flourier, Dr. Neola, and board members. This is our first budget workshop for the year 22-23. These numbers are very preliminary, but we did want to have a budget workshop early so we can just discuss with the board some of the things that are still pending. Please ask questions as we go through this. You do have this packet in front of you. If it's easier to see it rather than the screen, just refer to that. On page number 3 is our estimated revenue and appropriations for this year. We start off with our total revenues that we have estimating about $190 million of estimated revenues for this upcoming year, of which about 47.1 is local revenues. Most of that is property taxes, and I'll go over that in a little bit. Another $136.6 million is state revenues. Most of that is foundational revenues that we are looking at budgeting at about 16,275 average daily attendance. And I have a graph that we can kind of discuss that in a little bit as far as how we got there. Federal revenues, another $6.5 million, or an estimated about $190 million. Do want to turn over to page number 5, and this is how we recap the revenues. This is, first of all, in the first column there's a 2021 budget. Overall, the budget there for that year was about $189 million. That's what we budgeted 2 years ago. Last year, 21-22, our actual budget was $192.5 million, of which about $45 million was local revenues, another $140 million in state revenues, and a little bit over $7 million in federal revenues. This year, what we're projecting out of that budget for this year, we're projecting actually to be around $46 million in local revenues. In state revenues, we're actually projecting about a $10 million shortfall, about $130 million in state revenues, and most of that is due to the ADA. We budgeted 16,800 ADA for 21-22. We're going to be about 15,600, and that's with the whole harmless, from the state that they allowed us for the first 4-6 weeks, and we'll go over that here in a little bit. That being said, we have to estimate our 22-23 budget. And again, these numbers are preliminary. We have about $47.1 million in local revenues budgeted, projecting the ADA about 16,275. With that, our total state revenues will be about $136.6 million, and another $6.5 million in federal revenues. So our estimated budget for this upcoming year about $190.2 million. Again, very preliminary. It's going to change. Our property values continue to be adjusted by the appraisal district. And on page number 6 are the actual property revenues, that we've had over the past 5 years. You can see this year, what we're projecting is about $4.5 billion in taxable values. And I already adjusted that more or less to what we're projecting to be certified in August. We get preliminary values in May, but based on historical data, it's usually a little bit lower than that. So the preliminary values came in at an increase of about 8.5% property value increase, over last year, projecting to be over after all the appraisal review board, does all their review, to be about a 4.16% property growth. Still pretty good size, increase. With that, a potential property growth, we're estimating our property taxes after a 98% collection rate about $44.1 million in local revenues, another 6.4 in debt service. That's based on our current tax rate. So one of the things that we've done over the past several years, and let me go to that graph, I can show you that. It's the next slide here. This is the actual property tax rates, over the past 10 years, and where we've been. Like in 2011, 2012, we were at $1.21.8, and $1.04 was maintenance and operations, and 17.8 was interest and sinking. And so you can see over the years how the property tax rate in total. You can see it. We had the TRE in 2015, so it went up 10 cents. That year. Over the past the next 4 years remain about the same, and then. Tax compression came into play with House Bill 3, so we lowered the tax rate, in 2019, 2020 to $1.21.6, and you can see, the reduction over the last 3 years, how we have reduced our property tax, and that is based to, House Bill 3 and the compression that they, had to, we had to abide by. This yellow line is a property value increase over the years. And just wanted to kind of show that, just to kind of see what, the property value increase has to do with our tax rate. So you can see that property value has increased here the last 3 years, about a little bit over $3.5 billion to almost close to $4.5 billion. And you can see the reduction in property tax as it relates to the property tax value. The state through House Bill 3, if the property value increases more than 2.5%, then there'll probably be some state compression. So we would reduce our property tax rate. But just kind of want to show you this graph, how all that comes into play. The historical analysis of our tax rate and our property values over the past 10 years. Any questions on that slide? Okay, let me go back. Okay, this is the preliminary values. Again, the preliminary values is $4.7 billion from the appraisal district. As of May, that's going to change, and we're projecting to be about 4.5 by the time it's all said and done and certified in August.
What was it last year?
Last year, it was $4.3 billion certified.
So it's gone up, what, 100 and
But
something?
200, yeah, a little bit, $180 million.
$180
And you can see, I'm sorry, I didn't go through the new construction, but you can see the new construction right there, $75.9 million in new construction for this year that is new to the tax roll. The other is, property value increases.
So 105 is property tax, because I mean, everybody here probably recently got their tax notices and they went up, whew,
Yeah, they did,
they shot up.
yeah.
And so when you say that you're expecting it to shave off some, it's because of the protests that are going to come in?
Yes,
Or what?
yeah, through the annual review board, I mean, they look at these property value increases and they meet with the taxpayer and typically they do reduce it. So through historical data, we do have the preliminary values that we get in May. I've adjusted those down to what we anticipate to be certified in August. But yeah, it did increase quite a bit. Okay. So go back to, I'm sorry, to this page. So again, that's the total estimated revenues that we have as of, as of right now, preliminary, and it's going to change. So we look at appropriations. So we'll start with the appropriations. Last year we had $192.5 million of appropriations, and we back out some one-time expenses from the previous year. There are some, and I'm recapping those, and I'll show those at the next budget workshop. We look at the new additions, to the budget or reductions to the budget. So our staffing guideline, we're estimating to save about $1.8 million in just adjusting our staffing guidelines, to current. So I'm going to go over this page over here. And this is the preliminary staffing review that is done by Deb's office, and she works with the principals and seeing if there's any need for additional teachers or reduction of teachers based on the class sizes. And we're anticipating this year to have about, 30 net reduction, to our staffing this year at an average cost of about $60,000 per teacher, and that includes benefit. So that's the savings of about $1.8 million in less staff. We are, proposing to charge, 10 math teachers to ESSER, to help with that program, and just supplement, the local funds like that. So that's a savings to our overall budget, and
So we can use extra funds for
additional support.
to get the kids back on track? Is that
Yeah.
basic? So, I'm sorry, I missed it. What is our increase in revenue from tax base from last year to this year? What is it, how much is it anticipated?
so the increase in tax revenue, if you look at this, right here, this about $45 million compared to about 43, so about a $2 million increase in
In revenue from the
revenues.
taxes?
Right.
2 million?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it will change a little bit once we finalize that, so yeah, that's how much we're looking at.
So, and what was it the year before that? Was it was not as much, was it?
It was probably about another $2 million. If I'm looking at
Really?
this other page, yeah, it's about, $2 million in local revenue as well.
I'm surprised because just looking at the increases in tax rates that we just got notices on, I mean, they're up considerably. I mean, the housing market, as everybody knows, has gone sky high. Nothing's selling for asking price. Everything's selling for above asking price, and I think that's going to all level off, but anyway.
Remember, we also reduced the tax rate
Right.
as well, so that,
Right.
we receive less tax revenues whenever we do that. And we're probably going to have to reduce it again this year, once the state finalizes their compression model that they typically do. Maybe a penny and a half.
Well, and I know we're going to be increasing the homestead exemption by $40,000, and that's estimated to knock off about an average of what, 125 to 145 per family?
Yeah,
per
about
home- per household?
about $145, per family, because of the additional homestead exemption. Yes.
Has
So-
that been factored in?
It does. So the way that works is, the state is actually going to subsidize those funds. So whatever funds we lose from this additional homestead exemption for the, for the taxpayer, the state's going to, make the difference for that. So they keep us whole. Yeah, so, but that's, it's a good thing for the taxpayer, and it's all about property tax relief, and that's what they actually did. They're good questions. So some of the other things that, that are going to impact our budget is this property insurance. We did go out for bids, and we actually have an agenda item next week. And they came in a little bit higher than what we actually, paid last year. So we're anticipating that to be about a $400,000 hit to the budget. We did shift some funding, to ESSER, the counselors and the nurses, this year and next year. So that's going to save about $6 million. And the purchase of school buses, that we think we can do a one-time cost, about $2.2 million, that we're going to purchase about 22 buses. We think we can go ahead and just outright purchase them as opposed to leasing them. And the reason that we're going to be recommending that is that we have added some monies into our reserves, so we can do a one-time cost, and this might be a good way to do a one-time cost.
Julio, let me ask you, on the property insurance, I mean, part of that is we've added some new facilities, right?
Yes.
We've got the
Collegiate High,
Collegiate High, and I'm sure that was a big ticket item.
the Transition
The
Academy.
Transition Academy, what else
that.
has gone on this year as far as?
Those are probably the two big items that we've added. We also included some additional property that we purchased, like the Hawkins building, but that was kind of small. Yeah, Treasure Hills.
Treasure Hills was upgraded because of the increase in value. I mean, I'm sure the value of the building went up
Yeah,
significantly.
and we did, we added another $16 million to Treasure Hills.
I mean, is a lot of that $400,000 for that, or are we still with Shepherd of Walton Key?
We are, and
'Cause
they
I know
did
they
submit a
just-
proposal, yes.
And they just sold to a national company.
Yeah. But, yeah, I wasn't aware that they sold to a national
Yeah,
company, but they
effect-
did submit a bid,
Okay.
Yeah,
Effective March 1, they're now owned by somebody else. It's kept the name, but.
yeah. But a lot of that increase is, is based on, the insurance market. And sometimes, how that goes, they have big claim years, and so they increase, the cost of insurance pretty much.
Do you know what our increase was last year?
It was maybe $60,000. It wasn't a big number like that,
Okay.
like this. But it did increase a little bit, but it wasn't that much. So right now, we're estimating a surplus budget of about $2.7 million. And again, these are preliminary, and they will change. We haven't talked about salary increase or health insurance, increase, proposals increase, but I do have some slides here that Deb's going to go over. Let me first of all, let me go over this enrollment trend, which is very important. So this graph, it's just, the enrollment and ADA and the percent of ADA that we've had over the past 10 years. And in 2012 to 2013, we're about 18,400 enrollment. Our ADA was about 17,700, about a 95.9% attendance rate. And you can see we grew a little bit, kind of started to taper down in 2016, 17. Again, 18,614, 95.5 attendance rate, 17,714 ADA. And the following year, we lost some kids, and then we grew a little bit, and then we really came down, the trend is coming down. From in 2018-19, 18,574, 95.9 attendance rate, 17,125 ADA. 3 years ago, we're at 18,316. That's a loss of about 250 kids. About a 95.7 average daily attendance rate. 16,955 ADA, which is ADA is how we get funded for. That's that's the number that's important. And then in 2021, we're 17,882. So we lost about 500 kids, and that was that first year of COVID. So that impacted us some. The good thing about that year is that TA held us harmless. So our ADA stayed the same as the previous year. We had about a 95.5% attendance rate, and that was a lot of the virtual kids. But the average daily attendance, was the same as the previous year because we were held harmless that year. This year, 21-22, our enrollment is at 17,050. Our expected average daily attendance will be at 15,600 with an average daily attendance rate of 90.7. So, and we know that this year is a different year. It's been different than any other year, and last year as well. But, we believe that the kids are going to be coming back to school next year in 22-23. So we are projecting to be about a 17,500 enrollment, still down from the previous years, right? But, a little bit higher than this year because, this year is really not a indicative year of where we think we're going to be. Projecting to be about a 94.5% attendance rate, and that's kind of being a little bit conservative because, we're hoping that we get all the kids back to where they were, 2 years back and be at 95.9, 96% attendance rate. But I want to be a little bit more conservative and kind of, so we're thinking about 95.5%.
Julio,
So-
how do we get to that 17,500, that estimate?
Just based on where we are right now, we know there's about 300 kids that are being homeschooled. We know that there's still some kids that are still in the mix that we believe that we're going to get back. So based on the historical data, so we've lost about 200 kids, over the last couple of years. So if we take this year like it's, just if you take it out of the picture, then you can see the trend, and we're hoping to be that, we're at least 17.5. I think it's probably going to be a little bit higher than that, honestly. So, but yeah, that's where we end up there. It's, So with that, the total ADA is 16,275, which is what we're projecting, and again, it has been a difficult last 2 years as far as projections, and but we feel that the trend is moving up. Based on this year, we're early on we were 15,000 enrollment, and it kind of went up.
May I just ask a question for clarity to the point about the attendance? And of course, we're all very well aware of what the numbers are, and we're hopeful of what the numbers will be. I find impressive, I believe, Dr. Noyola, did I not hear that as we struggle through bringing the students back, at the same time, we have multiples of hundreds of new students? Weren't there 400? What was the number?
Right, so right now, we are going through our registration process, and so we have been, Dali Garcia and her department, as well as Shane with parental involvement and recruitment, have started that registration process. And so I believe as of this past week, about 65% of our kids have already pre-registered for next year, and so we're moving along in that process. But we also have about a little over, I think it was like 550 more or less new students that have enrolled for next year. At this time last year, we probably had enrolled about 400-ish for the upcoming year. And so we're hopeful a number of those students throughout this year that have been straggling in have been our homeschool students. Things are just different from where they were at the beginning of the year. So those students are starting to make their way back. And so to Julio's projections, we're starting to see that trend of students returning to our campuses. And so that's also part of this foundation around how we're establishing these projected enrollments.
Yeah, good questions on the enrollment, and we feel that trend. We're 17,883 last year. If we lose 200 kids, we're 17,683 this year. If we lose another 200 kids, about 17,500. So that's more or less where we think we're going to be. Hopefully, we pick up some kids, and I think we are. I'm going to go over this other slide here on the federal stimulus, and then we're going to talk about the Tacit compensation study. So just wanted to let the board know how we're using these ESSER funds. And again, it's been 3 cycles of ESSER. We had ESSER 1, which is the state kept most of those dollars to supplant the foundation dollars that they gave us. But they did, we did end up receiving about $575,000, and we used them for a lot of PPE items and some maintenance-related fountains and sinks, to be hands-free. ESSER two, we actually, receive about $25 million in ESSER two. And I put the end date to spend here. We have to spend those dollars by September 30th, 2023, which is, about a year and a half from now. We have earmarked, those dollars, about 6.7 in instructional needs, summer school, technology infrastructure, some sanitizing of some buildings, and then supplanting the counselors and the nurses for the next 2 years, this year and next year. And then some libraries and science lab, that we also have incorporated into the ESSER two program. Important again, that, we need to spend those monies by September 30th, 2023. ESSER three, which is a bigger one, $65 million, we have to spend those funds by September 30th, 2024. Now, as Oscar mentioned on these HVAC items, it's taken a long time to get those items from the manufacturers and the contractors, because they're all inundated with, the work, throughout the nation, really, because the ESSER funds was, federal dollars. So we're hoping that they extend, that deadline date. They haven't mentioned anything, but we think they probably will, because a lot of those monies might be unused if, because the contractors aren't going to get to all the projects. But, we'll keep you informed on that. So we do have, on the ESSER three, about $17 million for instructional needs, about 1.5 for summer school, technology infrastructure, $2.2 million. HVAC, clean air upgrades, about $20 million, a little bit over $20 million. The retention stipend that we give this year, about $8 million that we had, done 2 stipends in December and 1 in May. And then what, we might, we're still looking at, what to do for this upcoming year, but we set aside about $4 million for a retention stipend for this upcoming year. The good thing about the ESSER two was we're also able to reimburse ourselves about $2.1 million, to our self-funded health insurance, in monies that were COVID-related, that impacted our health insurance fund. So we're able to draw down those monies and put it back into our self-funded plan. Some of the supplanting of the, I'm sorry, where's that? The math teachers, for the next 2 years, about $2 million. Technology device purchases that we might, be doing in year 3, the last year, another $8 million, and we put it there towards the end because that's about the time that our current, devices will be coming to their end life. So we can do another round of, technology devices that will cover us for another 4 years after that. So we wanted to kind of, set those monies aside and look at that.
I got a question on, and this, maybe somebody's already said it, and I did pick up on it. Is it limited to math teachers? What about science or other?
Yeah.
No, it can be used for any
Where the biggest
instructional needs,
deficiencies are?
but correct. And so that's where we wanted to look at. We've always, there was a time when we went from some 90-minute classes to hour-long classes, and so we felt that there was some students that needed some additional support in that. And so we've brought on some math teachers to support those programs.
Oh.
But yeah, that's, pretty much our ESSER funds, and we're still, we do have committee meetings that we meet, at least once a month and kind of, look at the plan and make sure that, we're spending the monies accordingly. We do want to make sure that we spend them all, by the deadline. It is a lot of funds and we need to spend it responsibly. So one of the things that we wanted to just talk to the board briefly is we did have this TASB compensation study that was done. And just kind of, had a couple of slides here that Deb is going to go over and really what the study showed and how we can address that. So I'm going to hand over to Deb.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cavazos, and good afternoon, Mrs. Fleurier, Dr. Neola, and members of the board. And so this slide here is a breakdown, and it shows us current staff by pay groups. And so if we look, and this is for 21-22, and so if we look at the teacher pay group, we have about 1,200 teachers. Total cost $70 million. Administrative programs, about 287 staff members, about 21 million cost to our budget. Administrative management, which is our coordinators, managers, and directors, about 43 employees, about 3.2. And administrative support, our secretarial and office clerical staff, about 221 employees for about 6.6. Instructional support, we have classroom aides, our LVNs, and our special ed paraprofessionals, about 356 employees, about 7.3. And then our auxiliary employees, our custodial maintenance, bus drivers, child nutrition employees, for about 540 employees at about 12 million. So total cost and total count, about 2,671 employees. Total cost to budget is about 122 million. And so that is our total current employees and total budget impact for payroll.
Yeah, so
On
that's about, 75% of our budget in salary.
On the next slide, this is one of the first reports that TASB provided to us in their preliminary summary report. And so this is a teacher salary plan comparison for 21-22 and how Harlingen is faring in our teacher rate of pay as far as the teacher hiring schedule. And so currently, Harlingen is the red line. And so we're at about 52,000, right between number 7 and 8, La Jolla and Laredo. And so at 52,000 starting rate of pay. And so this chart also shows us in increments, right? The 5-year mark, 10, 15, 20 mark, and so on. And so to bring attention to the 10 and 15 and 20-year mark, we start to see that we slip a little. And so at the 15-year mark, our pay is at about 55.8. At 15 years, we're at about 57.8, and at 20 years, we're at about 60,700. So we start to slide, anywhere at about place 9 and place 10. So we start to slide a little. You see the green dotted line between 4 and 5. If we want to be in the 75th percentile, we would need to increase our starting rate of pay to 53,375, and that would bring us right in there between number 4 and 5. And so it's a great way to see where it is that we may have fallen a little bit below market, and it's more so in the tenured teachers, right? Between 10 and 20 years of experience is where we have slid a little. So at times when we are recruiting and trying to hire a teacher with experience, and they do a comparison when we offer them their rate of pay, and they, we say, okay, for 15 years of experience, we're going to place you here. At times they will let us know, oh, that's a little bit less than what I'm currently earning, right? And so this was very telling, and we have certainly seen that when we are hiring new teachers to our district. The next slide there is the TASB, what they're calling the recommendation model 1. And so in this recommended model, and looking forward at 22-23, their recommendation would be a 2% general pay increase for our teachers, which would be about 1,170, and bringing our 0-year teachers to 53,000 from 52,000. So anyone coming on board with 0 years experience would come in at 53,000. You will see a column that says additional adjustment, and you will start to see some adjustments, especially starting at about year 9 through about year 21. And so those additional adjustments would be to bring those particular groups of teachers with those, with the years of experience, again, kind of mid-range, right, between 10 and 20, to bring them closer to market. And we are always striving to be at 100% to market. That's our goal. And so for those particular groups of individuals who have, say between 9 and 21 years of experience, they would receive an additional adjustment that's a little bit just a little bit greater, a little bit more significant than some of the other adjustments. So again, this would be the recommendation to bring our teachers to a market comparison of about 100% to the market median.
Julio, let me ask you a question. Can you back up to the slide before this one? Okay. If you want to take us up where the green, if you take us up to where the green dotted line is, what would our budget increase be, more or less? Do you know?
So the next slide there is really getting us to that 100%. And
That's taking us to the green area?
I believe so, right, Deb, that?
Yes, to
getting
the
us to 100%?
It is, to the
And
75th.
so that, I mean, we typically do a 2.5%,
That's what I'm
3% for teachers, and, the big difference there is the additional adjustment on those specific years to get us more to the market, in the 10 to 20 year area. So they get a little bit of a bigger adjustment, but we get to 100% of market. And we've known that, that's been something that we needed to adjust. And the TASB study, pretty much confirmed that we really do need to add a little bit more to those particular years. We've done some adjustments over the years, but not that significant. But yeah, so as far as the total cost, and Deb was going to go over this as well, just the teachers, and to get us to that is about a $2.6 million adjustment. For the 2% plus the additional adjustment for the step. Not a huge number, because we typically do about a $3 million increase, in cost of living here per year.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, I want to be certain that I understand this. To your point, Julio, generally speaking, we always do a 2% increase. And yet, having done that up to this point, we find ourselves below the green dotted line.
Because everybody else is going to do 2% too.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Everybody else is going to get a 2% probably also. So how do we increase our position there, assuming that that's what the board and the district want to do?
So the 2% is one thing, right? Is the other additional adjustment,
We're going to give all teachers the additional adjustment?
yes, yeah, I mean.
Oh, I thought you were
this-
talking about that, getting the ones
This
that were further.
column here, that's, that is what would get us back to, to the 100%, right? So we do the 2%
I'm sorry, I don't know what 100% means.
of market.
Oh, okay.
So this column here is what would, hopefully get us more to the market.
So we're giving everybody more than 2%.
Yeah, overall.
So this year will be different,
It will be different.
additional for everyone.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
my concern is, and I don't know how the numbers play out, but I want to make sure that when all the dust settles from La Jolla to Brownsville, that we're in that green area.
That's right.
Because everybody's going to be doing something, and, I mean, we need to know what it's going to cost. I mean, ideally, that's where we want to be. And, I mean, if you anticipate that everybody else is going to do, I mean, you can probably look at historic, like somebody said, we always do 2 to 2.5%. You can probably find out historically what McAllen, PSJ, and Brownsville, and Los Fresnos, all of them do. And if you factor that in, and we do what we're planning on, will we be where the green dotted line is?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So this is Model 1 of TASB. They did give us Model 2, Model 3 with some additional increases, and we're studying those too. We don't know what the other school districts are going to do, but we can certainly, get a survey and see what they're doing as far as increases.
And maybe I'm wrong in my assumption here, but doesn't ESSER allow us to do more or not?
ESSER allows us to do those stipend
Well, I mean, we're using,
adjustments.
the ESSER funds we use for things we'd normally be using our funds for, well, we could use our funds for this. Am I wrong? I mean, we're able to do air conditionings and roofs and things, anything that's COVID-related to improve air quality and so
Correct.
forth, which should free up our other funds, I
Yeah.
would think.
So you can, but we have to be careful in having a permanent cost, because the ESSERs are going to go away in 3 years, right?
I'm
Yeah,
with you.
So we can do the one-time things, but when we do something that's going to be permanent,
Right.
we might not have the monies here 3 or
Down the
4, so we
road.
have to kind of be careful as we look
No,
at
I
that.
understand.
Yeah.
That's why it'd be interesting just to see, assuming what other districts do, where
Yeah.
where we fall in afterwards.
I think just in general, and I don't know where La Jolla and PSJ and some of these will be, but certainly in fact, I posed the question to some of my superintendent colleagues. And so a number of them are relying on ESSER funds to be what they put out there. I think the concern, I think it's a concern everywhere, is the loss of enrollment and the attendance impacts. Everybody across this entire state is going through that. And so they're being very conservative with pay increases because, to Julio's point, those are permanent adjustments. So a number of them, at least those that I've spoken to, are really relying on those ESSER retention stipends as a way to incentivize and still give staff some type of increase, but using ESSER funds for that, but not really focusing too much on making salary adjustments.
It's temporary. It won't be
Correct,
permanent.
correct.
May I ask a question as well? So on the chart where you show the other school districts, and where you show, you know, whatever their current zero salary is, just as an example, let's talk about zero salary. Is that their current, or is that going to be their?
Yeah, that's their current.
Okay, so then I don't, at least in my mind, this isn't going to move us in the way because, okay, so when you go to your next chart, that one, so let's just take our 0 year, right? We're at 52 and we want to be at 53, whatever, let's say 53. Okay, so we add our 2% general, but La Jolla's 2% general isn't accounted for. So we need to do 2% plus their 2% in order to be equal, plus the additional adjustment.
Right, assuming that they would do a 2% this year,
Right.
right? Yeah,
But we can't, I don't think it's safe for, I mean, you're the expert, but it just doesn't seem safe to us to assume they're not going to do it. Then we're still behind. We're exactly where we are.
Yeah, if they do a 2%, now we'll be up on the equity adjustment because we'll gain some
Yes.
ground in the equity
That
adjustment
piece.
because they might not be doing the equity adjustment.
Right,
So
right.
that would get us closer to them, but if they do a 2%, that's another $1,000 for them. The additional increase will get us closer to the 100%.
Right. But I think I think the board is saying if we want to be at the green, we have to do our regular 2% plus 2% to keep up with the Joneses, plus the adjustment.
Yeah, if we can get there, right? You know,
Right, if we can get there.
We gotta
I just
look
want
at
to,
the money.
in my mind, I want to make sure I was understanding.
Because this 2% is not the usual increase they get, right?
Yeah.
This is just to adjust for the,
This would be, you know, the proposed increase, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be this 2% plus another 2% cost of living. We're not proposing anything yet, you know, we're just, you know, putting this, you know,
but I
model
think
out
that's
there.
what you're asking, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's a moving-
The other districts are getting a 2%.
The line's a moving
And
target.
then we only go to here, we didn't catch up.
Yeah, which is a very valid, you know, valid question, you know, we do this, but they do the same, we're still gonna be in the same boat.
We're still,
right?
yeah, the
If,
percentage-wise, we're still.
but what do the additional, with the additional adjustments, Julio, let's say that on a 10-year teacher, we added 1,170 and 1,130, which is an
2,300.
increase of 2,500, I think.
2,300.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong
Yeah,
one.
but
Yes,
2,300.
2,300.
Yeah,
So
so we're
what
still
would a
2% down.
Well, what would because the other districts will not be doing these additional adjustments.
Yeah. Right.
They'll only be doing that 2%.
Yeah.
So in actuality, a teacher at the 9-year, where they're making 2,500, that would not be equal to a 2%. That's actually more than 2% that they're getting, correct?
Right, yeah, so it would get us closer to, you know, to the market. Now, maybe not at 100%, but it will get us closer because we're doing that additional adjustment besides the 2%,
Right.
right? So one of the things that we can do is we can look at the actual scales from the other districts, and let's say, you know, they're gonna do 2%.
Yeah, across
So
the board,
across
just
the board.
assume that, yeah.
Yeah, we can compare that to
Yes.
where we would be compared to this, right?
I think that would be a good comparison,
Yeah.
because we're saying we're 100%, but I wonder,
Yeah.
right?
When will this be an action item?
Julio, can I verify something real quick, just to make sure I understand?
Sure.
You're on this page here. If I understand correctly, you got 52,000.
Not just a.
You're adding 0.225, not 0.2, and that's how you get the $1,170.
Right,
But you increase now to year 2, And 52,000 times 100 times 0.2 is not 1,170. And that number all the way down is 1,170. That should be increasing also.
Well, that's like a standard 2%, based on the median salary for teachers, right? So let's say the median salary is, it's $60,000. So they take 2% out of that, and that's where they,
So that's the number they're using, and that's why they're drawing
yeah,
it down.
yeah, it's the same amount for everybody, and then the additional adjustment that they
Okay.
would get to kind of get us more into the market.
Okay, makes sense.
So let's say, for example, everybody does the 2%, right? So we did our 2%, but we also did a little bit more. Yeah, the question is that going to get us, closer to the 100%? And yeah, and again, we're still studying that, but we wanted to let the board know that the TASB study, they have pretty much completed their study, and we're reviewing it, and they wanted to share these slides with the board.
Super helpful.
And the main thing, yeah, we're going to do as much as we can, and hopefully we can free up some dollars that we can address, some of these side
So
concerns.
at the next budget workship, maybe we'll have some more definitive.
Yes,
of
absolutely.
Where we are, where the districts are, and where
Yeah,
we're doing,
yeah,
and what we
yeah.
can afford.
Yeah, so we are planning for another budget workshop in the first week of June.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll get some more clearer numbers and more direction as far as what our recommendation is.
We vote on the budget, where, in August or?
June, end of June.
So-
And to Greg's point about the ESSER money, and that 8 million for the retention stipend 1, and then 4 million for potential stipend 2, why is it 4 million, not 8 million again?
We wanted to kind of see if we can have some monies for some additional items, like the technology devices. That's $8 million that we can purchase through ESSER. So, we wanted to address that, that item that's going to come up in 2 years.
Yeah, but I meant the retention stipend. Didn't you say it was 8 million for the
Yeah,
first
8 million
stipend?
for the first year. So the second year, we're looking at, if we do half of that, and we do a one-time retention stipend, let's say in December, or just do it December and May, maybe $1,000, instead of $1,500, like we did this year, maybe we do $1,000 in December and $1,000 in May, kind of cut that in half. We're still looking at what other districts are doing. Most of them are going to be given retention stipends. I don't know how much, but yeah, we're looking at that too.
Okay.
Great questions.
Thank you so much for the information, though.
And we're
I just
still,
wanted to thank you.
Deb and I are still evaluating this, and yeah, we'll definitely come with some recommendations as we move forward. So this last slide was really the bottom line if we do that option 1 and the cost. Total cost about 4.8, overall, and that's their Model 1. They do have Model 2, which is a little bit more, and we'll look at Model 3 as well. Want to get as close to market as we can. Again, sometimes with our enrollment trend, we just need to kind of be a little bit
Conservative.
cautious. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. So the last couple of slides is really, our statement of revenue and expenditures and fund balance and where we're projecting to be this year. I'm not going to go through all of this, but I think, we're looking at probably having, maybe putting in about $4.5 million into our fund balance. And the reason for that is because of ESSER, we're able to shift some of these local costs and get reimbursed for some of these items that we had incurred and just charge them to the federal dollars, and you can with ESSER, that you can supplant. So we're able to do that, and we think, that if we do that, and we've done that, we should have maybe about a $4.5, $5 million, revenue over expenditure for this year, increasing our total fund balance from about 44.6 to about $48.6 million. And this is just a graph of our fund balance and compared to our expenditures over the past 10 years. And you can see in 2021, $44.5 million, we're projecting to be about $48.6 million in fund balance. And that's about 29% of our operating costs, which is about a little bit over 3 months, and we want to be, typically at least 2 months, 2.5. But so with that said, that's what we're probably going to be proposing to purchase those buses, just pay for them, one-time cost out of our reserves, it doesn't impact our next budget, for the next 3 years. So we can probably purchase the buses, outright. Instead of leasing them and paying a little bit of interest, we can probably do that
Yeah.
with the reserves.
Real quick, speaking of buses, where are we on the bus driver situation?
Deb might be able to address that better.
In regards to just retaining our bus
Yeah,
drivers?
retaining and
cer-
hiring.
Certainly. So this spring, we have been able to bring on board an additional 5 bus drivers. And we haven't had very many that have submitted a notice of retirement, maybe in comparison to prior year. So that's a great thing. So we're hoping to retain the drivers that we have, and we're continuing to work closely with, say, TSTC in regards to recruitment. They have a new training program that they're working with us on, and so we're looking at different avenues to try to recruit additional drivers. And so, yes, there is still a need, and we do still have some vacancies, but we are working closely with just local, entities to see what we can do to recruit.
Again, these numbers are preliminary, and we're still working on, Ida, Ambris, and Raymond. Raymond couldn't be here, he got a little bit sick, so, but, they help with the budget and appreciate their assistance. But it's the first budget workshop, we'll have another one in June and fine tune the numbers as we get a little bit closer to the June 30th deadline.
May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
I just want to say, Julio, thank you so much. I mean, there's so much going on throughout the nation. It's like almost a perfect storm. If we don't balance this correctly with decreasing student enrollment, increasing costs, I mean, it could be a catastrophe.
Yeah.
So we really, we appreciate you looking at us, taking care of us.
So, no, thanks, and then again, it's a team effort, Deb and her staff, and, my staff as well. We know that these assessors, you can do so much with them, but they're one-time, type of,
Sure.
cost, and we have to be careful as
Yeah.
we put any permanent type of cost into our budget.
Agreed. Thank you.
I would like to add too that, thank you very much, because it's really helpful to see this. And of course, I appreciate the fact that the district always has had several budget hearings, and that really helps us kind of formulate our thoughts, one based upon the other. I just wanted to comment that it's extraordinarily helpful to have the TASB studies. And so, TASB does this in a variety of areas, not just in this area. And it's been very wise, I think, over the years that we've tried to employ that, that offering that they have to do that. And just a caution that it's always good going forward to maximize what we ask them to do in terms of overview rather than minimize. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ida.
Anything else to come before the meeting tonight? Dr. Noyola, do you wish to say something?
No, I just thank Julio and his staff. Every year we go through this process, and every year he and his team continue to guide us in the right direction. And so immensely grateful for that whole team. Certainly Debbie has played a huge role in this salary study and getting us to this place where we're able to have solid data on which to base some of our decisions. So just kudos to both of those groups.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. If there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned before 6 o'clock tonight.
5:52.